And I guess we'll talk about Baker. The rumors out there, the unfounded, dirty rumors that Carolina is looking to trade for Baker Mayfield still. Make it make sense. It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, if you really thought that Baker Mayfield was that guy, that he was a franchise quarterback, you would have got the deal done already. You wouldn't be quibbling over who was going to pay, the rest of his guaranteed salary. You don't think he's that. So what's the point? You spent a second, a fourth, and a sixth on Sam Darnold, then immediately picked up his 5th-year option. So you're stuck paying that $18 million right now. Then you went and you traded a 3rd-round pick so that you could use a 3rd-round pick on Matt Corral. So, he's going through his first OTAs and mini camps and everything right now. Why would you bring in another quarterback to put ahead of him when you're supposed to be using this year to kind of evaluate what you have in Matt Corral? And I think that the answer to that question is Matt Rule and him not being, him not having a job security, right? He can't go out there and say Matt Corral's our quarterback and we're just going to let him take the bumps this year, because he's going to be fired. He wants to find a veteran quarterback who he thinks can win him whatever the magic number is, 7, 8, 9 games, that saves his job.
Yes.
Which is why when you think about firing a coach, you should fire that coach. You don't bring him back and say, hey, okay, you've got 1 year to prove to me that you deserve this job. No. If you think that he's not your guy, then fire him, let him move on and go prove it somewhere else. Because when you have people in that kind of lame duck situation, they make these short-term decisions that never really work out, and they hamstring you in the long term as well.
Yeah. So I agree with everything you're saying. I do. Right. At the core of it all, it's just fire Matt Rule and start clean, right? But they already decided they're keeping Matt Rule, at least for this year. We assume this is a kind of a lame duck year, right? But, he's still fighting for his job. And it makes sense that he's not going to lean on what round did you get Matt Corral in? 4th round?
3rd round.
3rd round. You're not going to lean on the 3rd round quarterback, although, he shows some promise, right? Like there's some potential there. And absolutely, I would love to see Matt Corral just get an opportunity to play, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if you get Baker Mayfield, right? As long as you don't try to sign him to any kind of deal, you just let him play out this year, and maybe you get some of that vintage chip on the shoulder Baker Mayfield, and you can have a better year than than what we thought was going to happen this year, because we at the end of the year we thought going into this year they weren't going to be watchable.
Okay, but here's the question: why have a better year? Why? Just Alo's saying because Baker's better than Darnold. That's why. Not saying much, but it's true. Yeah, he might be better than Darnold, but why? So if he can take you from 5 wins to 9 wins, what do you get out of that?
Well,
are you going to sign him to be your long-term quarterback? Because at that point, he's taking you out of contention for Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, which is where your focus needs to be if Matt Corral is not the guy. That's why this year has to be Matt Corral plays and we find out if he can be a franchise quarterback. If he can't, then they need to go get one. If he can, then obviously, it's great and you shouldn't be wasting assets on Baker Mayfield, period.
Well, okay. So I want to ask the audience, and I want to ask our guest. He's here. I want to bring him in on this conversation. But I guess, how do you feel about Baker Mayfield? Do you think he's just a bust, or do you think no, he could be a franchise quarterback? Because we've had this conversation about Baker Mayfield not even a year ago, right? We're talking about this past season, and we kind of thought he's a franchise quarterback. He may not be great, but he's a quarterback that you can keep and you can win with, right? Are we past that now? Like, we done with that? Or
yeah, look, he's been on a stacked team in Cleveland They put a very good O-line around him. He had Odell, though, he had his issues with getting the ball to Odell, but he had Odell and he had Jarvis. They brought in Austin Hooper and David Njoku and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Like, he had a lot around him and he couldn't get it done. I think that what you're looking at with Baker Mayfield is a very low-end starter. And it's not somebody that I'm jeopardizing the future of the franchise for. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
All right. Well, I want to bring up our guest, but first let me read a couple comments. JP says Baker is Kirk Cousins 2.0. A lot of people think Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback that you can win with. A lot of people think that, right?
Yeah, a lot of people are wrong.
Living Legend, shout out to Living Legend. He says Baker is a great commercialist. He's a great commercialist. Raymond's online ungatekeeper says not a bust and definitely not a franchise QB. Yeah.
Well, if you're not a franchise QB at number 1 overall, you kind of are a bust.
Yeah. D Weezy says Baker is a bridge QB. That's the thing about Baker, man. Like
26-year-old bridge QB. That's all I'm talking about. Why waste the time? You've got one.
Just Alice says you're using logic, Brodny. Matt Rule is trying to save his job. That trumps logic. Yeah. Well, I mean that's logical, right? You're employed. You don't want to lose your job. It's logical to try to do what you can to save your job. King 95 says Baker barely made it work with the Browns. He'll sink with the Panthers.
Okay, I don't appreciate the shade there, but you're right. And he didn't really make it work with the Browns. They made the playoffs once.
Yeah. All right.
That team is better than that.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring up our guest. Oh God, keeping it real. What's going on, my friend?
What's going on, guys? How y'all doing?
Hey, do you have any thoughts on Baker Mayfield? This isn't clear cut to me, right? Like, do you think Baker Mayfield's a bust, or do you think there's still something there for Baker?
All right, I'll say for Baker is not a bust because he can play. Now, in terms of him being a franchise quarterback, I believe he can be a franchise quarterback. For me personally, I believe there's a difference between. There's different levels. You have a starting quarterback that you just put in there to, play and start games. He can win you 1 or 2 games if you need him. You got a franchise quarterback that can win you 7, 8 games, maybe take you to the playoffs. And then you have generational talent at quarterback. Those are the guys that you bet your money can take you to the Super Bowl. These are the guys that can carry a franchise. Those are the top of the top. You look at a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes. For us, we believe it's a Lamar Jackson. In that case, he definitely falls in that category. Baker doesn't fall in that category. He doesn't carry a franchise.
Right.
Baker can succeed if he has a great team and a great system. He will thrive. He will look like a great quarterback in the right system. That's a franchise type of guy. He'll play well. His highs can be high with the great talent and a great system, but he's not going to carry you. So I wouldn't say Baker is a bust. He's more of a franchise quarterback, but he's not going to be the guy to take you over the top. So in terms of this Carolina trading for him, why would you do that unless he's going to be your franchise guy? Like, what would be the point of that? He'll maybe win you 8, 9 games. Potentially, you could fight for what? The 7th seed in the NFC, even though I doubt you'd get it at that point. But what's next? Is he your guy?
I think that is the point for Matt Rule. Well, not just Matt Rule, right? David, not Tepper. Who's
Fitterer?
Scott Fitterer. I don't think his job is secure either. I mean, he came in and under the assumption that he's kind of a yes man to Matt Rule. So his job might be tied to it as well. So the both of them might be looking at it like, we need to get wins. We need to get enough wins for David Tepper to say, all right, y'all can stay. All right. You're not going to tie that to Matt Corral, unfortunately. But that's to B's point. That's why you fire a coach when when you're on the fence with them. It's kind of like how I feel about John Harbaugh, but we'll talk about that later. but no, that great breakdown. I agree with that. I agree with that. And it's so weird to say, right? Like you can see with Baker, obviously he can play at times, but it's that lack of consistency. And I also agree with B. I think that makes him a bust. You're the number 1 pick overall. People forget that Baker Mayfield was number 1. Darnold was 3, right? He was 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like they were drafted high, but everybody just remembers Lamar Jackson. Like the expectation is Lamar Jackson to play at a high level. If he has any kind of drop off, everybody's gonna talk about that. But Baker Mayfield, #1 overall pick, he talked that talk. He walked out there, chest all pumped out, feeling dangerous, doing all the progressive commercials, which I love, by the way. I love those commercials. But he's doing all these things, and he's been a bust. You can't be #1 pick overall and just be all right, or just barely starter level. Maybe that's a bust.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be your play versus the expectations. When you draft a guy at 1, you're expecting, like you're saying, keeping it real, the guy you're betting on him being the one who takes you over the top, takes you to a Super Bowl. And if you don't meet those expectations, and listen, being a bust most of the time is not on the player; it's on the team, right?
Yeah.
Like Baker didn't. I mean, I'm sure he did ask to be drafted #1, but I mean, he didn't make that decision, right? He didn't draft himself #1. So, it's a bust for the Cleveland Browns is how I tend to look at it. You're at the end of his rookie contract and you're telling him, man, just stay at home. We'll deal with you. We'll get you up out of here, right? You're not saying, hey, we drafted you #1 overall. We desperately want to make this work, but Baker wants to leave. Like, they want him gone. And that to me signals more than anything that they just, it didn't work. He's not the guy that they thought he was. Which really should tell Carolina don't bother trading for him. I mean, I would much rather they just waited for Jimmy Garoppolo to get cut and go and sign him if you really are intent on bringing in another quarterback. But like I said, they need to get Matt Corral ready and get him in the game as quickly as possible and see what they have in Matt.
Yeah. Also, one more thing I want to add to this Baker Mayfield story. Our guy, Robbie Anderson. That's my guy. Robbie Anderson, who was near retirement just a week ago. They asked him about, what he said about Baker Mayfield, because he was adamantly against Baker Mayfield being a part of the Panthers. He didn't shy away from it. They asked him about it after practice. They're saying, hey, with this talks about Baker Mayfield possibly joining the team, do you want to walk back anything you said? He said, no, I said what I said. Like, that is, I mean, that's something.
Now, he said that it was in support of Sam Darnold. That's his guy, even though he had his worst season ever with him. But yeah, there's no reason for him to walk anything back. Baker made his own bed.
Listen, he's giving Sam Darnold the business too. I've seen that live on TV. Yeah. Okay, Robbie does not hold back when you're not playing well, and he's looking at Baker from distance and saying, "No, thank you." But who wouldn't, right? You didn't make it work with Odell, and as soon as Odell goes to another team, he looks like Odell of old again. Yeah, right. That's going to make any wide receiver look at Baker kind of funny. So, I mean, Baker. Man, look, good luck to him. Yeah,
best of luck to Baker. I mean, that whole receiver thing was bad. With the whole Odell situation, the fact that because Odell in New York, he was that guy. It went from Odell carrying Eli's on his last leg in the Giants to him being completely unrecognizable with Cleveland. How can a quarterback who's younger and supposed to be that guy to carry, how can you not be able to make it work with Odell? Then the second he gets released, he joins up with Matthew Stafford, and they're able to make it work. One can argue he would have gone off in the Super Bowl if he didn't get hurt.
Yeah, he looked like he was getting ready to dominate.
Yeah. Griff says that commercial career is over. I don't know. The way he's pumping out those commercials, man, he might have 5 more just
in reserve.
And they're good. Look,
in the vault, if you will.
Look, they're good commercials. I like the commercials. So
they're fantastic.
You don't have to be a good player to get these commercials.
Yeah.
And yes, he's also doing Hulu. Somebody called him Hulu Mayfield. That's what Mafioso B said. Yes, Hulu Mayfield. Yes. Baker is a progressive QB. Yes. Jake P says Baker can't play where he can see. Too bad he's short. Yeah. You got.
I got a lot to say about my potential future quarterback. All I'll say is I'm gonna be watching a lot of Ravens games this year.
Just Alo said, if Baker was a 32nd pick, he wouldn't be a bust, but he was the first pick, ergo bust. Yeah, I think at 32nd, I think you're a first round pick. there's expectations for you to at least be a starter, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
30-second, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And if he was
Yeah,
32nd, I don't think it'd be a situation where the expectations is for him to be that guy to change everything in Cleveland. Because I mean, being the first round pick, you're the number 1 overall pick. You're supposed to be that guy to change everything. But the 32nd pick, it kind of fell damn near close to the second round. So it's like, we'll see if you could be a quality starter. Maybe you could be that guy who could be our potential franchise guy. But, you know, being the number 1 versus being 32, that's 2 far separate expectations put on you.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about quarterbacks, because when a team believes that a quarterback is that guy, we've seen, you know, what teams will trade to move up and get that guy. So if they let a quarterback fall, you know, and say, hey, you know what, we can draft a tight end, and then we can trade back, and then maybe trade back up into the round. It's because you don't really think he's that guy. You're kind of hopeful, but you don't really believe it.
Shout out to Dan. He says, dang, y'all started with the Panthers news first. I need to watch the replay. I'm late, but hey, y'all. What's up, Danity? Thanks for coming through.
What's going on?
You know, I wish you would send us a DM too, Danity. You know, we're trying to give you free stuff or whatever.
That's okay. That's okay.
Who hit us up? JP? JP hit us up.
JP did. And I want to let you know, JP, they have not shipped it yet. They sent me an email. They are dealing with some shipping delays, but I'll let you know when it's on the way.
Who was the other winner? Was it King?
King,
you're in here, King. I saw you. You're in here. Hit us up, okay? We got free stuff for you. All right, okay. Yes. It's crazy how we went from this time last year to saying, yeah, he's a franchise QB. They're going to pay him a lot of money. This is what we were saying.
Yeah,
the Browns are going to pay him a lot of money, and you know he's worth it. He's a franchise QB. He got you to the playoffs. He got you a playoff win. You know, you just keep building around him, and now it's just like, nah, I wouldn't touch him. you can't even give him away.
The craziest part to me is that nobody is interested. I mean, except for, you know, obviously, but nobody else is trying to get in and get Baker. You know, that speaks volumes to me. And it's the same thing with Jimmy G. Like nobody really believes. Like Jimmy, what has Jimmy Garoppolo done to anybody except take the 49ers to the Super Bowl and then to another conference championship game, and nobody wants him?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's a little odd.
True.